Welcome to the Women on the Rise podcast. This is where we talk all things entrepreneurship aimed at female entrepreneurs. Whether you are just starting out or you have a 7 or an 8-figure business, we bring you the greatest tools, techniques, and ideas for inspiration for your business. I also interview some of the world's leading entrepreneurs from all over the world to hear about their businesses and what they've done to grow and scale their businesses. I welcome you to join us in our journey for Women on the Rise. Welcome to another episode of Women on the Rise, and today I'm joined by Lien DePau, who is the founder of The Big Exit, and we are talking from our studio in London. But Lien has come all the way from Belgium to chat with me today. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited and looking forward to our conversation.
So I have had a list of amazing women that I've wanted to have on the podcast, who I've wanted to speak to. And you are one of those women who has been on my list for a couple of years. And I am so grateful to have you in real life in the studio in London. So thank you for coming.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Lien, you have built a business called The Big Exit. And the whole thinking behind this business is, well, you are helping people, helping entrepreneurs exit their businesses. Do you want to, I think it's better if you explain a little bit about how it works and what you're doing, because I don't really know of many people who are doing this in this space.
I don't think there are many people who are doing this in this space. I think in general, businesses get sold through a broker. That's how most businesses get sold. But for a lot of small business owners, brokers are actually not really that accessible. And the main reason for that is because smaller businesses, and when I mention small, I mean businesses that make less than 2 million in annual revenue. A lot of small businesses are not really the scope of a lot of brokers because they tend to get paid on the sales price, just like a real estate broker is paid on the sales price of a house. So real estate brokers are more interested in selling more expensive houses where they make more money on than basically smaller, lesser expensive houses. And the same goes for businesses as well. That basically means that smaller business owners, and I'm sorry if I use the word smaller in this case, because a $2 million business is not a small business, correct, right? But these kind of smaller businesses are actually the ones that need the most help often when selling their business. And the goal with the Big Exit is to educate them on what makes your business sellable, what makes your business valuable, and if you decide to go and sell, that your business is in the best possible shape to go and sell it. So you can do that for a life-changing amount of money, and maybe you will work with a broker or you will go in independently. That choice is yours, but you will have all the knowledge that you need in order to make your big exit.
So what you've spoken about is really interesting, and a number of entrepreneurs don't necessarily think about this, is all the work that needs to go on behind the scenes before you're ready to sell your business. And sometimes people get to a point where it's like, okay, I'm ready to sell their business, but actually their business isn't ready to be sold. What are some of the things that if, let's say, somebody's thinking of selling their business in the next couple of years, that they need to have in place now to actually be ready for that sale?
Yeah. I always say any business can be sold, just like any house can be sold. The question is, how much time do you have to sell and for how much money do you want to sell? So that's the main thing. Any business can be sold. That's what I always say. Now, just to give you a couple of statistics, less than 10% of the businesses that are being put on the market for sale actually sell. And that includes a lot of the bigger names where you might be reading the stories about in the magazines that sell for hundreds of millions of dollars. So when we're talking about the representation of smaller businesses in those numbers, it's even way less. So for a smaller business, less than 2 million in annual revenue, the chances of them being sold when they're put on the market are very slim. And the main reason for that, and there's a bunch of reasons or a bunch of things that you can do to increase the value ability and the sellability of your business. But the main reason for small business owners that we see is that the business is very dependent on the owner. So there's owner dependence or not enough owner independence. It basically means the owner is still involved in a lot of the operations, a lot of the day-to-day, a lot of the decision making. Maybe the owner is still the one that is doing all the sales and bringing in all the new leads, for example. We see this happening time and time and time again. So if there is one thing that I would advise a small business owner to do when they're looking to sell in the next couple of years, is to create their business being less dependent on them. And it comes with a whole lot of limiting beliefs that goes on top of that, but that's the work that you need to do. Build your team and build your structures and your systems behind your team so they can basically run the day-to-day operations without you. And if you want to do a really easy, quick check to see if your business can run without you, take a break for 2 months and see what happens. Go for a holiday very far away so you cannot interfere without any kind of Wi-Fi. Do a 2 months digital detox and see what happens to your business. If you're like already feeling like, oh, that's not going to be good, well, that's where the work needs to be for you the next couple of years.
I can imagine a lot of people are listening to this and taking a deep breath and going, no. Not yet.
I'm
no.
being honest.
Yeah, well, and it is really important to be honest. And there's a piece as well. There's a lot of different types of sales that people can have as well. For example, I was talking to a business owner a few weeks ago, and she was like, look, I want to sell my business. I want to basically hand over the keys when they give me the check, and I'm done. Mm-hmm. And that's one way of doing it. But then sometimes there's other sales where the organization is like, great, we will buy you out, but you need to work in the business for 6 months, 1 year, 2 years to be able to hand over that business to the new owners. So maybe can you talk a little bit about the different types of sales that people could expect?
Absolutely. And I think the ones that you have mentioned are the two most common ones. And for a lot of small business owners, they think like, I sell my business, I close the door, I take the big check with me, and that's it. Now, everything depends on owner independency. So if your business can run without you, you will only need to convince the buyer that you'll be spending a couple of weeks, months to make an easy transition and a smooth transition. And as soon as that has happened, you can walk away, putting the keys on the door with your check, and that's it. It very rarely happens for small business owners, and the reason for that is that independence that we already talked about. So the more dependent your business is on you as the owner, the more risk a buyer takes buying your company. Because they'll be like, yeah, wait a minute, once I pay hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars to this business owner, and he or she is going to run away literally when they get the check, what's the risk to the company? And if the owner is doing the sales and all of a sudden there's no more sales coming in because the owner is gone and somewhere on a yacht in the Bahamas, then that's very risky for a buyer. So if as a owner, you can put yourself into the shoes of a buyer, you will probably be going for the second scenario that Jen was mentioning, which is like, I'm going to pay you a certain amount of money, and I want you to stick around for a certain amount of time. And this could be years, not months, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. This period is called the earn-out period. So often what will happen is you get a smaller part of the sales price in the beginning. And the longer you do your earn-out period, the rest of the money will follow. And sometimes it can be a little bit more trickier than that. Sometimes your earn-out period and the amount of money you will get during the earn-out period will depend on certain goals that you are meeting on top of that. So when I'm talking about independence of the owner, not having that much independence of the owner has that consequence. The earn-out will become longer, and the risks associated with the earn-out, which is part of the selling price, will depend on goals achieved in the future, is going to be more heavy in the whole deal that you set up with your buyer. So what I advise always people to do is the more independence you can create before you sell your business, the less likelier it will be that you will have to stick around for a very, very long time. And that's probably not the thing that you want when you're selling your business.
Correct. Okay, so let's have...
There was a lot of stuff in there, right?
Well,
so,
but
let's unpack.
Let's have some real talk, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so first thing, creating more independence. And this is even relevant even if you don't want to sell, right? Like even if you want to have more time and stop feeling like
have a holiday
or a slave to your business, or what does that look like? So let's talk about some of the practical things that people can put in place today.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that you can put in place, right? So every situation is different with every owner because often they will still do the things that they love to do or they're really good at in their business. So if you want to take this very practically, look at your calendar for the last 2 weeks and look what you've been spending your time on in your business. There could be marketing things, sales things. It could be actually delivering the service or the product to your clients. It could be maybe logistical things. It could be maybe finance. You can kind of like get an idea when you're doing an analysis of your calendar to see where you're actually spending your time on, where you're making the decisions, where the business is still heavily dependent on you. It's actually, for a lot of people, owners, they don't really like to do that, but it's a great exercise because it gives you a snapshot of where you're still currently needed in your business. And the next step that you can take from there is at least set up a plan of the things you want to start either delegating or automating. And preferably those are the things that you spend a lot of time on and you don't really like doing. That's the easiest part. So you start delegating and automating. Maybe that's delegation to people in your team that you already have and they're capable to step up and take on those responsibilities. Or it might mean that you need to hire someone and set out a vacancy to hire that particular person to take over that particular part of your job.
But even the automation bit, it's so fascinating because you and I have both been in business for a very long time, and 10 years ago there was very limited things that we could automate. It
hardly nothing,
right? And so it was all human driven. And especially if you've had your business for a while, that I think we've been so busy running our businesses that you forget to kind of stay up to date with technology and see what you can automate. And I would encourage people as well to look, especially if you've had your business for a while, at what is out there now that can help you save that time and money through automation.
100%. I always say to people and small business owners, I'm like, probably 90% of the things that you're currently doing, humanly getting it done, can probably be automated. And people are always shocked when I say that. They're like, yeah, but that's not possible. It needs the human touch. It needs this. There's a whole bunch of arguments why you shouldn't automate, or it's less personal. My clients will feel like they're being handled by a robot. I mean, I've heard millions of reasons why not to automate, but I can tell you this: if you do so, it's so much cheaper than delegating, and very likely you'll make fewer mistakes than when you would do it manually.
And you could also arguably take that time that you save and dedicate that to a bit more human connection with your clients or customers as well, if it's taking up tasks or things that don't necessarily need to have that human touch.
Absolutely. And it's always been my strategy as a business owner as well. I always said, like, whenever we save time by automating something, that is time that we can dedicate to customer service and customer support and having that really high valuable touch with clients. And that kind of allows us to grow, I think, much quicker than most businesses can. So it's kind of taking that lower, easier tasks off the plate of the people in the team or of the people in my team, so they can do those more valuable tasks, which is really helping clients through the customer journey. So clients experience it as a very high touch experience, although at the back of it, lots of it is automated.
That's such a great solution, right? And this is why we need to be open to that. And I want to say as well, for anybody who is a Female Fusion member who's listening, is we have so many tech tutorials and we keep adding more and more about how to automate different areas of your business and showing you step by step different types of tech that you can use just to take that fear away, to show people like, this is what it can do, this is how it can help you, so we can get people more in the habit of automating.
I think that's great, Jen. And I think the biggest benefit from that is like, once you get a little bit over that hurdle of like, but I'm not technical enough, or, I touch your computer and it breaks down. Like I've heard all kinds of arguments, like whenever I do something with software, it kind of just blocks and whatever. So I think if you just, as a business owner, if you're feeling a little bit of that fear, take one of these courses, just start implementing, see the amount of time that you save, and trust in the process. Like if you start saving, like, even if it's just 2 hours a week, that's 2 hours that you could spend on something else that brings in more value. If you're starting to save, let's say like a day in the week, like, can you imagine the kind of stuff you could do with that, with like a day in the week extra? Like, can you imagine what your sales would be looking like if you would spend 20% more than you're already doing right now on sales? Like, it could really be a game changer for your business. So if you're feeling a little bit of that fear, just take it step by step, see what the benefits are after you started implementing and things start moving forward, and then really enjoy the freedom that comes from that and use that to either spend more time with your family or spend more time with your team or create a little bit more, whatever it is that you love doing with that extra time.
Yeah.
Or grow the business.
But I think when you get comfortable with automations and you see what it can do, it becomes kind of a little bit addictive, that it's like, what else can I automate it? How else can I save some time? Because there are so many great things that we can do within our business.
And from a point of exiting, it makes sense as well to just get back to the point of exiting, right? It just having some level of automation in your business shows that you have some form of maturity in terms of how you run your operations. A lot of automations are happening because at some point you decided as an owner to standardize things, to optimize things, to capture them in procedures or like standard operating procedures or SOPs, and then maybe automate them later on. And it just kind of shows that you have gone through a maturity process with the business that is appealing to a business buyer as well. So from an exiting standpoint, it makes sense to do that too.
Definitely.
And it will increase your profit, and profitability is a key driver for value.
Yes, that is right. And I was going to ask you, I'm glad you mentioned standard operating procedures or SOPs. Again, Female Fusion members know I'm always nagging them. It doesn't matter if you have just started out or if you've had your business of 1, business of 25, you need almost like that manual or toolkit to run your business, the standard operating procedures. Can you just speak really quickly to that? So, because it's always like I say it and they don't believe me, but I think if Lien says it, they will then believe you.
We'll give it a try. No, but it's true. I mean, a business runs smoothly and efficiently and with more quality when there are procedures in place. Like in a very, very long lifetime ago, I used to be a person in charge of optimizing business processes. And I don't say this to sell SOPs to you. I mean, that's not my business. But a business that runs on SOPs just runs more smoother. You'll be able to also like train new people that get on board. Like there's a standard way of getting things done. And one of the things that I always do when I start with something new in the business, like a new strategy that I'm trying, let's say like a go-to-market strategy or something like that, a lot of is experimenting. You try things and you play with it and you see what works and what doesn't. But once you see what starts to work, one of the things that I tend to do is write down the steps that I take that made the thing work. It's like, I first did this, and then I did this, and then I did this. And the reason why I do it is not so much to create a procedure just yet, but for me to be really efficient at the task. Because when I do it again next month, I just need to follow my own procedure. Yes. And it's very scribbly and no one will understand. It's not like a proper instruction that I could use as a training manual, but I do. and it makes my work more efficiently, and it's not as strenuous on my brain, and I can value on other, or I can work on more valuable tasks. But that little scribbly thing that eventually becomes an SOP and a more evolved document. So I also want to stretch that out, because maybe people get a little bit nervous when they hear procedures and they think it's like a 20-page thing and it's super detailed and whatever. But my SOPs, they always start with just a few little scribbles of how did I do this that made it work. And then from there, it becomes a more elaborate document where I'm like, if I want to have somebody else do this task, I would love them to just read this document and go on with it and don't need to ask me any questions. And if they have to ask me questions, I change the SOP a little bit so the question gets answered. And that's how you build a team that becomes independent of you.
Yes. And I am going to give another plug. If you are a Female Fusion member, not only we have a masterclass on teaching you how to create your own SOPs.
Great.
But then also in our template vault, we've got probably about 15 SOPs that are kind of there as Google Docs that are like the basic steps for like general processes that you would need to do in a small business. And then you can take it, edit it, make it your own. But sort of if you're stuck and you're like, I don't know, like SOPs, what is this? At least you've got some templates to start from and then create your own.
You're making our lives so much easier. If you're not a member yet, I mean, now I'm going to plug.
Yeah.
Just get a membership. Then you don't need to scribble down all these things like I do.
The best $970 investment, right?
Absolutely. Like worth in its weight in gold, or how do you say that in English? So,
Yeah. Okay, so we've gone through all of those sorts of things, but one challenge that we have as business owners, and when it comes to selling, it's kind of like, getting investment, getting access to procurement opportunities. We as women are not selling as much as businesses owned by men, and we are not getting the same amount of money. Talk me through this a little bit, because we have to change all of this. So let's talk about some of the data and where we are right now.
Yeah. So the whole experience of starting, building, and scaling a business for women and for men is different. I think most of your listeners will recognize that. They are female-led businesses, female-founded businesses. So they know that the experience for starting and building and scaling a business is slightly different, if not to say quite different, between a female-founded and a male-founded business. Same goes for exiting. So when we're talking about, we're all familiar with wage gaps, pay gaps, right? Like
gender gaps in general.
So they're there with the pay gap. I just did a little bit. I checked some numbers this morning, and in the US, for every dollar a man makes, a woman makes 82 cents. That if she's white. Saying that, there's a thing. There's the wealth gap just in general. Women, I think, take the opportunity, half of the amount of men to, for example, make investments, like long-term investments, whether that's in property or stocks or bonds or angel investments or whatever that is, which is not helping them to generate wealth, definitely not generational wealth. There's a funding gap as well. 2% of VC money goes to female-founded businesses. 2%, just to say, is going to female-founded businesses. But if you're smart enough, play the game and bring your male co-founder with you, because all of a sudden you'll get 23% of VC money into your pocket, right? So maybe you want to play that game and be a little bit smart about it. The same thing goes for exiting. So there's a exit gap. There's not a lot of data around it yet, but I found a little bit of data in the research that I have been doing. So the exit gap is twofolded, and the numbers they'll blow your mind. For every 100 businesses that are being sold, 99 are male-founded and 1 is female-founded. Like 1%, okay?
Right.
So, right?
Like,
so
I think let's stop there
and let that sink in.
Yeah.
If I sell my business, there are 99 blokes who are selling their business.
Yeah.
It won't be you. It's 99 male founded businesses, right? So that's an incredible mountain to go up to and an incredible number to try to change. Now, I'm hopeful because in the last decade, we had way more women starting businesses and scaling businesses. It means that in the decade to come, there'll be more women exiting businesses. So the number by default will grow a little bit more. Will it become 50-50? I think we're talking about probably centuries ahead before that is going to happen.
Yeah.
And the best thing that women can do is build up their knowledge around exiting. What makes a business exitable? What makes it sellable? What makes it valuable? Have that conversation. Find a woman that has exited her business. It will be like looking for a needle in a haystack, finding that woman, but they are there, right? So you're listening to this podcast, you can reach out to me, for example. There's women in female fusion that have exited their business. So try to surround yourself with a woman who has actually done that and gone through that process. That's one of the things. And learn. Exiting is not as complicated as the male gatekeepers of the merger and acquisition space are trying to make you believe. It is not as complicated as that. So educate yourself on time, like not like, oh, exit, I might sell my business in 5 years from now. I'll read a book about it 5 years from now. Read the book now. There's great books about exiting. I have a few on our blog that I recommend you reading. Start reading up on it. Take a course on it. Get yourself familiar with people, women specifically, who have exited. That will help you raise your chances or increase your chances in actually selling your business and getting that 1% where we are right now as women entrepreneurs in getting that number up. I would highly appreciate getting that number up. So let's all get there.
So the other thing as well I would like to know is, with all of these gaps, and I think I know the answer to this, let's say that we had two identical businesses, one owned by a woman, one owned by a man. Let's just say, that we had two identical ones. Mm-hmm. If they both exit at the same time, are they going to receive the same amount of money?
The answer is no. And the data shows that very, very clearly. Do you want to take a guess what the difference is?
About 23 to maybe 28% less. Am I about there, or even more?
When a woman sells for $1 million, a man sells for 1.5. That is $500,000 difference on a million.
Significant.
It is. It is.
Okay, so let's unpack this, because we're continuously having conversations about this, and you and I speak about this a lot, and we're in the space where we know a lot of women who are like, this is not cool. And to put it politely, I said to Lien before we started, I was like, no swearing.
Thank you for the notification
on this podcast.
I'll do that on my own podcast one day.
Exactly. But if we could swear, there might be a few swear words on here. Mm-hmm. But okay, so what do we need to do? For example, one thing that, not talking about exiting, but I know a number of VCs and angel investors, and one of the things that they say to me, and a lot of times women, and they're very passionate about helping women as well, is that they see that there's a difference in how women are pitching compared to men. There's a difference in how women are speaking about their businesses compared to men. A difference in how we talk about what our business does compared to guys. And we tend to underplay our brilliance and our excellence, which fails us when it comes to selling our businesses or getting investment. Do you see that?
Yes, and I have been working in the field of gender equality in business for 15 years, right? I have one of the largest networks and business schools in Belgium for women entrepreneurs specifically. And there is no right answer to this. I'm not an advocate for women should behave more like men so they can be more successful.
Right.
Right? And there's a very fine line between knowing the game and playing the game and knowing how to bend the rules of the game. So there's different angles you can go about doing this. And some will be more about, I know the game and I'm going to play it so I get what I want, which is I just want to have my money.
Yeah.
Right? And I will play the game to get it.
And it's crappy that it has to be like that, right? It shouldn't have to be like that, but we're smart women. And if we have to play the game to get our 1.5 rather than 1 million, you should 100% play it. Is it right? No, it shouldn't be like that.
Yeah, and I think there's a journey for everybody, right? Like some of us will feel more familiar or more comfortable with playing the game. It's what I said earlier on. I was like, bring a co-founder of your business to a VC meeting to get funding because it's way more likely that you're going to get the money. That's playing the game.
Yeah.
Right? And so if that's what you want, do it. You could also play the game by pitching to female buyers exclusively, or maybe pitching to mainly women-led private equity funds, for example. That's also an option that you have. So you can play that game. You can try to change the rules of the game. And I have a theory about it, but it's my own theory. So I don't know how much this relates to any other thing. So there's women that feel highly comfortable with challenging the status quo from the outside, right?
You mean like me and you?
Yeah. So we're like, there's this system. I can see what the system is. I don't want to play on the inside to change it because it takes too long and I don't have the time. And I don't have the energy to do that. So I'm gonna attack it. I don't like to use words that are related to war, but I will try to change the system from the outside. And that might be you, and that's great. I think we need people who try to change the system from the outside. And for example, one of the things is private equity funds that are female founded. That's playing the game, like changing it from the outside. And other female entrepreneurs will be more comfortable with trying to change the game from the inside out. And that's great too. If you're in private equity and you're like, I'm going to get into the biggest private equity fund and I'm going to be the first woman in there, I'm going to be the first Muslim woman in there because I want to make the change from the inside, go for it. You've got your allies here. So I think it's kind of where you feel most comfortable making changes to the game, go for that route. I've always, and Jen is the same, we like to go from the outside, but if you want to go from the inside, go for it. We need all the allies that we can gather around this cause to close that gap.
Absolutely. Another thing that I've seen, and I guess this is the nature of me being surrounded by so many entrepreneurs, is that I feel sometimes that women are not getting access to, we're not getting access to the same amount of funding, but also as well that sometimes there's a bit of a knowledge gap on everything that we need to have in place and we need to do to be able to sell our business. Do you find that as well?
The knowledge gap is, this is intuitively because there are no studies around that, but the knowledge gap is, as far as I can see, gigantic when it comes to exiting. I feel like my male counterparts have been having conversations around exiting almost from the moment that they started their business. And if they have external funding, for sure they will have those conversations, right? Knowing that only 2% of female-founded businesses get funding, there's already a gap clearly there. But yes, definitely. I think there's, and this is one of my goals, is kind of leading this conversation among women entrepreneurs to be like, hey, let's have this conversation. Let's not be like, oh, that's not for me, or oh, I'll never sell my business, or I'm so passionate about it, I will do this the rest of my life. I hear a lot of these things and they might be true, But it might also be that someone will come knocking on your door wanting to sell your business. And I hope you'll be ready when that time happens. So that's why I think it's so important for us to be having exiting conversations, even if we're not planning to exit anytime soon, whether that is within Female Fusion or another network that you are in. I think having these conversations will, first of all, create the opportunity. It will be another opportunity for us. We could see like, oh, I could scale to exit. That's another opportunity than scaling to turn it into a $10 million business. I could scale this to exit, for example. That's just creating that opportunity. That's creating freedom. It's creating flexibility. And then there's the, hey, if I want to scale to exit, what are the things that I need to do? What are the things that I need to change? How do I go about on that journey? And there's a lot of knowledge missing there. And if you want to access that knowledge, and one of my clients said this so beautifully, she said, like, that knowledge has been gatekept.
Gate kept.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Gate kept for hundreds of years, and specifically for women. And what we're trying to do with the big exit is to open up and not be a gatekeeper anymore and say, like, this is the things that you need to know about it. It's not complicated, despite what a merger and acquisitions consultant might try to sell you for big bucks. It is not as complicated as you think. Here's the knowledge that you need. You're smart, you're capable, you're amazing. You've built this business to whatever this business is right now. There's nothing there on the journey to scaling to exit that you will not be able to do.
As women as well, we tend to have this fear, right? That it is the fear of, well, I'm not going to get investment, or people aren't going to buy me. And so there's that fear that almost holds us back, where men a lot of times as well, I'm seeing, are having those conversations all the time. They're going out, they have those networks. So when they're ready to sell, they've kind of already done the work, and they have 3 or 4 people lined up who could be potential buyers of their business, but we don't tend to do that.
Yeah, and I think there's the fear part of better not try.
Yeah.
So I can't fail. Like, there's that part, and that part always comes back, no matter whether you're just starting out or even thinking about starting out, or whether you're scaling or whether you're exiting. Whether it's nurture or nature, there's a lot of discussion around that. But definitely for women specifically, we are discouraged to try, and we are encouraged to not try and be safe, right? Whilst boys in general, when we're not aware, when we're raising them, boys, we encourage them to go and try and play and see and what happens. And if you fail, it doesn't matter. You try next time. There's a bit of that in every single culture, I think, that no matter where you're born in terms of culture. Yeah. So that's that part of it. That being said, though, we've broken so many barriers as women. We overcame so much of that fear for the last, especially 150 years. So why wouldn't we not be able to overcome this particular fear?
Correct. Right? And this is why we need to come together. Now, we have some resources in Female Fusion around exiting. So anybody who's a member, we do have some, including you've done a couple of master classes for our members as well, which is brilliant. But I want to talk about you a little bit. And I didn't tell you I was going to bring this up, but I think it's so brilliant that you have created a course. You have a course around the big exit and helping people to exit. And then you also, as well as the course, you also provide consulting, and you do a lot of work supporting women around that. So I want to ask you to talk about that, because I know you won't otherwise. And I think it is such a service to women.
Thank you for bringing that up. I'm not here to pitch anything, I'm happy to talk a little bit about the course, because I truly believe knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. If we don't know what we don't know. But when we do know, it makes us more powerful. It makes us more powerful in getting ready to exit. It makes us more powerful in choosing the broker that we're going to work with. It makes us more powerful in the valuation that we're getting. Female-founded businesses get valued lower than male-founded businesses, just on the numbers. Imagine that. I'm just going to leave that rest a little bit for now. We work with an amazing independent business valuation team that doesn't do that, but it does happen and the stats are there. So I think knowledge is power. And one of the what we guide people through with the course is we get them an independent valuation. And for women founders, that's even more important than for male founders. It's independency in business valuations are key, and I'll tell you very simply why that is. When a broker values your business, he's going to value it high. Why? Because he wants the listing.
Yeah. It's like estate agents, right?
It's like
Same
estate,
thing.
exactly, right? So don't fall for that trap. We teach that in the course as well, but you already get a little scoop here. So get an independent valuation from someone, and we work with a team doing that, for someone who's not invested in how much your business is worth. Like they don't make more money because of that. So know what your business is worth, because then at least, even if you're not planning on selling, now is a good time to know what your business is worth, because it might be way less than you're thinking. It might be way more than you're thinking, but at least knowing is power, right? Mm-hmm. So the first step that we take is we value your business independently. The second thing is we do an assessment. So we're going to check which of the drivers you have in place that really drive value up, and which of the things you have in place in your business that kind of lower the value of your business. And again, knowledge is power. At some point, you will have to go into a negotiation, hopefully with multiple buyers, and start a bidding war for your business. But you need to know the strong points and you need to know the weak points, because you're going to be attacked on the weak points, and people, potential buyers, are going to downplay your strong points. So you really need to be sure on what they are. And then basically the rest of the program is, hey, your strong points, you can leverage them more and play more and develop more so your business becomes more valuable. And the lesser good points on your business that make it less valuable, this is how you could change them within 6 months, a year, 2 years, depending on the timeline that you have.
That's so great to be able to have access to all of that knowledge. I like as well that you start out with a baseline for the valuation. I didn't even know that you had that. So that's a really useful resource as well. What we'll do is we'll put the link to the course in the show notes in case anybody is interested in that as well. And then I know you're also acting as an advisor, and people can hire you separately as well if they're, because I know some people, they're like, I don't got time for a course. Tell me what I need to know, or help me sort what I need to do. So you also do that separately as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Now we try to build the program. Like, I've been in online education for more than 15 years. So the program really has been built as accessible and quick to be as efficient as possible when you're going through it. That's why we also do the assessment, so we can kind of guide you to the most important parts of the program and of the course and the knowledge that you need to know. But then there's still people who are like, I want a shortcut, I want it quicker, and I want some accountability as well, because knowing what you need to change is one thing, but then actually changing it is another thing, right? So we have a lot of people who go through the course and they're looking for some form of accountability, who are like, I need to hire a couple of people. Can you kind of like not help me with hiring, but make sure or go through a couple of things with me so I'm hiring the right kind of people and things like that, you know? So there's a little bit of accountability and hand-holding there, and I offer that too.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for everything that you're doing for female founders, for helping to close that gender gap when it comes to women selling their businesses as well. And thank you for sharing your knowledge. So I hope that people have taken away some clear, actionable steps for how they can prepare for selling their business.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for being on the podcast today.
I don't know about you, but social media can feel pretty overwhelming sometimes as a business owner. It just feels like there is constant work that always needs to be done, which is why I have recorded for you a completely free 45-minute masterclass called Marketing Without Social Media. And inside, I share with you my tools and techniques that I use to grow Female Fusion and the other businesses that I have had. So I give you the tools, the techniques, and the frameworks to put that in place in your own business. All you need to do is head over to femalefusionnetwork.com/marketing.